Yeah, and what's really interesting is there's research that shows that when we have that belief, it
Mhm.
actually negatively impacts our memory performance.
That's what I was
Mm.
thinking. We can
Yes.
manifest something that's not even there.
Yeah, it like turns into this self-fulfilling prophecy. So they did this study where they had participants do this like memory type task,
Hmm.
and they told one group of people that they were going to do a memory task, and they
Hmm.
told another group of people that they were going to learn something new,
Hmm.
even though the task was exactly the same. And the ones who saw it framed as a memory task did worse than the ones who were learning something new.
Hmm.
And so it was just this idea of I have to remember something. My
Right.
memory's bad. And they like fell into this belief, and it played out in their performance. And so I
Right.
think that that also plays into our day to day. Like you assume you're not going to be able to remember anything, or you assume that your memory is bad, and then it is bad.
Hello, everyone. Hello. This is the Wisdom and Bloom podcast. Of course, I am Denise, and my beautiful co-host with the sexy red lipstick is Kamisha. We're so
Hello,
happy.
everyone. Welcome back to another wonderful episode of Wisdom and Bloom.
Wisdom and Bloom.
Yes. Are you fearful of aging? Are
Ooh,
you concerned because you think that you will not stay mentally sharp as you get older?
yeah.
If those are concerns of yours, then this episode is for you because we are going to be joined today by a fantastic professor who has an expertise in cognitive aging. And we are going to
Yes.
discuss all of the things. We are joined today by the lovely Dr. Sara Margolin. She is an associate professor of psychology and neuroscience with an expertise in cognitive aging. Her
Mhm.
research has appeared in journals such as Aging, Neuropsychology and Cognition, Experimental Aging Research, and Educational Gerontology.
Mhm.
And she has recently published a textbook on the psychology of aging. So she knows her stuff, okay?
Yeah.
Her writing has also appeared in the Buffalo News, the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, and the Albany Times Union. And she has appeared on podcasts such as Aging Matters, all discussing various aspects of the aging process. You can
Okay,
find
Dr.
her on the
Margolia.
social media platforms, Dr. Sara Margolin, and on Facebook at Sara Margolin. We'll leave all of this information, of course,
And I
down
show
below
up.
where
Mhm.
we'll link it so you can reach out to her. And she provides insight into the positive aspects of aging every day. So let's welcome Dr. Sara Margolin to the Wisdom in Bloom podcast.
Yay!
Hey,
Welcome,
thanks for having
welcome,
me.
welcome, welcome, Miss Sarah, Dr. Margolin.
Yes.
Yes, thank you for joining us today to talk about this very interesting topic. And I think we just want to start first with cognitive aging. Like
Mhm.
what is that? Like, can you explain that term and what does that mean exactly? Cognitive aging.
Yeah.
So, what happens with our mental capacity, our memory, our thought processes, our information processing as we get older? And I
Mm.
think, Denise, you hit it right on the head that we see all these kind of horror stories about, people struggling with dementia, and that sticks with us because it is scary.
Yeah.
And there's this really interesting psychological phenomenon where we assume that things happen more often than they do when it's easy to think of examples of them happening. And I think dementia
Right.
is one of those things that it's very easy for us to think about examples of people getting Alzheimer's disease dementia, frontotemporal lobe dementia, vascular dementia, all the different types of dementia. We see examples and we see how awful it is. And so we just
Right.
assume that it's happening way more often than it is. And then we kind of work ourselves into this frenzy of fear that we just assume now that that's going to be our future when more than likely it's not.
Right. Right.
Mm.
So we see rates of Alzheimer's dementia, which is the most common type of dementia,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
at about 10 to 12% of adults over age 65. It
Oh,
Wow.
that's
does
much
get
lower than I would have thought.
Yeah.
way lower.
That's young.
And now it does increase as we get older. And so
Mhm.
adults over age 85, we're looking at like 50%.
Mm-hmm.
But even
Mm.
still,
Mhm.
that's not a universal experience. It's not the guarantee. And so we're fearful, yes, of the unknown, but also with the assumption that that's our future.
Mm.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's scary too. That is a super scary part because you equate aging with memory loss. And
Mm-hmm.
me and Kamisha have been doing a lot of research and interviewing around menopause. And
Mm-hmm.
and menopause affects the cognitive memory around, brain fog and forgetting things. And then it's almost like the two are entangled because it's like, is
Mm-hmm.
it menopause or is it aging or is it
Mhm.
both? What
Mm-hmm.
can we do to help assist and
Mm-hmm.
and maintain a healthier brain, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think first we can untangle a little bit the
Hmm.
menopause issue with the dementia issue,
Hmm.
Mhm.
because there is some research that suggests that in menopause there's this time of change, right? Just like what we see like in puberty, this time of change.
Hmm.
And so that brain fog is a reflection of brain changes.
Hmm.
Brain changes that were designed to happen to allow us to be flexible and now then lean into the change that's
Hmm.
coming. And
Mhm.
so once we kind of ease out of the perimenopause and really hit kind of menopause
Hmm.
happened, things kind of settle out.
Mhm.
And so then we start to really see what might be normative changes in our memory, which happen, but
Yeah.
those are things like slowing down
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
maybe taking more time to remember something,
Hmm.
or forgetting where you learned something or where that information came from, which oftentimes is irrelevant.
Hmm.
Mhm.
um, we're not forgetting how to cook our dinner,
Yeah.
not forgetting to change the bed sheets. We're not
Right.
forgetting the important things that we need to know. It might take us a little bit longer,
Right.
but it's when we start to forget the important things, like, why do I have a house key?
Ah.
Right?
Mhm.
Not where did I
Mhm.
put my keys, because we all forget that,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? Like
Mhm.
I forget that.
Hmm.
Where
Mhm.
did I put my keys? And there's an intentional issue. I wasn't paying attention when I put them down.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But why do I
Right.
have a house key?
Wow, not where,
Which door
but
does it
why?
belong in? That's
Mhm.
problematic, right?
Hmm.
And that might be indicative.
Hmm.
Getting lost in a familiar place,
Hmm.
that's indicative of something. But forgetting why you went into the kitchen is normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
It happens all the time.
I was in
It
the
happens all the
pantry.
time.
I was in the pantry yesterday and I stood there and had to turn around in a circle and walked out and then walked back in and was like, oh yeah,
Mhm.
that's why I came in the pantry.
Yep.
Yeah.
We used to tease my mom before I started like learning all of this and studying this. We used to tease my mom because she'd go into the kitchen and just like spin. And we're
Yeah.
like, why are you spinning?
Yeah.
But you make a very good point because I do know some people, who are older, I would say like 70-ish or so.
Mhm.
And I'm recalling a situation where I was talking to one person and she was getting very upset because she could not remember some things that happened when she was younger.
Mhm.
And she's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm getting so old. I just can't remember anything anymore. This is so terrible. I used to be able to remember things."
Mhm.
But what you're saying is that important? Like the fact that
Yeah,
you can't remember, what your neighbor's car was when you were 12, you know what I mean?
not important.
It doesn't really matter, but it was really bothering her. And it actually
Mhm.
started to make her think, oh my God, I'm getting old and I'm
Well, and
forgetting
that's the
things.
thing. That's
Yeah.
Mhm.
why it was bothering her. She probably doesn't care, what kind of car her neighbor drove when she was a little kid, right?
Mhm.
It's not important. What was bothering her was the assumption that she's going to lose her memory because she's going to get dementia. And here's the first sign, right? Like, I
Mm.
forgot this thing that
Because
I thought I
because
should
I'm
know.
getting
And all
old.
of a sudden now it's going to be downhill from here.
Because
Mhm.
I'm getting older.
Mm-hmm. And it's
Yeah,
again,
it just kind of feeds that fear, right? It feeds that
yes. And I
fear.
Yeah.
literally just had this conversation with a coworker who's over 60,
Mhm.
and her expertise is in teenagers and adolescents. And so she doesn't have like this knowledge. And so she assumes about herself those
Yeah.
same things, that she's going to lose her memory. And she saw my husband. He had come to pick me up from work because my car was broken.
Mhm.
And she's like, "Oh, I forgot your name. It's because I'm old." I was like, "Wait,
Right.
no, it's not because you're old. It's because you haven't seen him in a year,
Mhm. Mhm.
right?" So you had no reason to remember his name.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have no
Mhm.
interaction.
Yeah. When would you have needed to know that information?
Right.
Mhm. Mhm. I think
Well,
this is so important because you do have to differentiate between things that you remember that you need to remember. Like
Mm-hmm.
you said, or why can't I remember that I even have a car key? Or like, why can't I remember where I live or the people that I live with?
Mm-hmm.
Versus something that you just want to remember because you think it means that your memory is strong and your brain is young and that you are not getting older and that you're not having any of these challenges that you see coming ahead of you.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you are able to accept, like, that just is normal, right? As we get
Mm-hmm.
older, we kind of things that don't matter, they kind of fall away from our brain.
Yes.
And like
Yeah.
that's normal. And it happens at every age. It happens when you're 30, when you're 40, when you're 20, what just as we said, when you go into a room and you're like, why am I in here? I mean, that happen. Everyone can relate to that at any
Mm-hmm.
age. So I
Right.
really appreciate what you're saying about kind of looking at this, what it is you're saying you don't remember, and like understanding the importance of remembering it or not remembering it, and not tying it to that must mean that
Mm-hmm.
I'm on a quick decline to like
Yeah.
never
And
remember anything or get Alzheimer's or get dementia or whatever it is that you've created in your mind about getting older.
yeah, and what's really interesting is there's research that shows that when we have that belief, it
Mhm.
actually negatively impacts our memory performance.
That's what I was
Mm.
thinking. We can
Yes.
manifest something that's not even there.
Yeah, it like turns into this self-fulfilling prophecy. So they did this study where they had participants do this like memory type task,
Mm-hmm.
and they told one group of people that they were going to do a memory task, and they
Mm-hmm.
told another group of people that they were going to learn something new,
Mhm.
even though the task was exactly the same. And the ones who saw it framed as a memory task did worse than the ones who were learning something new.
Mhm.
And so it was just this idea of, I have to remember something. My
Right.
memory's bad. And they like fell into this belief, and it played out in their performance. And so I
Right.
think that that also plays into our day to day. Like, you assume you're not going to be able to remember anything, or you assume that your memory is bad, and then it is bad.
So what is this concept? I know you and I talked about this, Dr. Margolin, is the use it or lose it concept. How can our brains benefit from staying mentally active?
No. So even though our brain is not a muscle, it sort of acts like one. So
Mhm.
if you're working out, your muscles are going to build. And the same holds true for our brain.
Mhm.
Our brain uses a tremendous amount of energy every single day.
Mhm.
And so it's going to try and be efficient where it can. And so it's going to feed what it needs and not what it doesn't. So if you're not using something, it will prune it out,
Right.
and your neurons will kind of die off. And so in your example of, your friend not remembering the neighbor's car, she
Mhm.
didn't use it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's gonna be pruned out. She doesn't need that information.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
then things that we do use are going to get strengthened.
Yeah.
And so
Mm.
if we can continue to use as many things as we can, as many skills, as many different types of mental exercises, problem solving, those kinds of things, we can strengthen those pathways and then kind of build them up like a muscle. So that way, if dementia hits, now there's a little bit of resistance for it to push up against. And it might damage some neurons, some brain cells, but there's backup. You've got enough left over to have some resilience and maintain function then longer.
Yeah.
And you're not going to continue to use or to lose what you're not using.
Yeah.
So
now, what are some of the things that people can do? Because I have heard things like puzzles, doing, putting together puzzles, or doing, word searches or crossword puzzles.
Sudoku. My mother-in-law used to do Sudoku.
Yeah, those are all great. So they're going to tap into different skills, right? Like a puzzle is very visual, so it's going to tap into visual spatial skills. Sudoku is very problem solving based, and so you're like trying to figure something out. Word crosswords and word searches are going to be, verbal and word based, and so I would say like the most diverse things. Learning a foreign language, reading a book and going to a book club to discuss that book is great. Anything that you enjoy but also is challenging.
Right.
You don't want to keep doing something that's super easy because it's not exercising much.
So watching a TV show, even if it's a new episode every week, you're saying that's not going to keep your brain
I mean,
active.
It may depend. It may depend on the show, right? Like if you're watching something on the Discovery Channel, right, where you're learning about something, or the History Channel, where you're learning about something that you didn't know, then that's different, maybe than
watching Atlanta Housewives,
right? Which isn't bad because those are showing like relationships and social relationships, and so you can exercise your emotional intelligence in that way too. But watching TV in general is pretty passive,
right?
And the information is kind of coming at you, and so you're not exercising
instead of coming within you.
So if you were to watch a TV and then have a conversation with a friend about that show, I would say better.
No, I mean, what you're saying is absolutely so important, because I also think sometimes when people get older, they feel like they should stop challenging themselves, stop challenging their body, right? Whether it's their physical health, and also like stop challenging their mental health. But what I'm hearing is that we should continue to be learning, continue to be growing and stimulating our brain, especially like as we get older. Like learning new activities, participating in new things, and continue to challenge ourselves, and not kind of just sit around and say, oh, it's all over. I'm never going to remember, it's all downhill for me. We have to actually take control and say, no, this is not what's going to happen to me. Like I'm going to continue to keep my mind as sharp as I can based on, what I can control about that.
Right. And I mean, it can be hard too because people are, they're retiring, right? And they're like, I've earned this, right? Like I've earned this time. I've put in my, 40 years of work. And that's great. But then what have you earned? Right. And then what now? You've got you retire at 65, you've got another 20 years of what? What do you
Right. I love the fact that you said book club, because for the last week or two, I've been pondering joining a book club. And I've even talked to my oldest daughter and said, hey, we should join a book club. I really think I need something else to stimulate. And then the other part of this is I love the fact that Kamisha and I started this podcast, because I'm learning something all the time when researching with podcast. I've had to learn how to edit the audio. I had to learn Spotify all over again. She's learning. We had to learn different platforms, and we're, bouncing those off each other all the time. And then talking to all these amazing guests like yourself and getting all this information. And so I love the fact that we are doing all these different things to stimulate, because I mean, Kamisha is still working, but I'm retired. So I'm trying my best to figure it out. Like, how do I continue to stimulate my brain and not fall into the wheelhouse of saying, I've worked 40 years, I deserve this rest, which I do. I deserve the rest, but I don't want the rest at the cost of my brain stimulation, if that makes sense.
So we can think about it less about like rest and more about now an opportunity to do something
Different.
that you've always wanted to do, right? Like I joke that when I retire, I'm going to become a nail tech, so I could do nails, because I love that. But I'm busy being a professor, so I could do something else, right? And then I could learn something new. And I think that's really important. So a book club is actually something that's accessible to almost everyone. You can do it virtually, you can do it in person. Many public libraries offer book club groups for free because, they have the books already there. You just got to check them out. And if your eyesight is a problem, there's audiobooks. You can listen to the book. I was actually once in a book group at my public library, and there was a woman there who had macular degeneration, so her vision was just shot. So she would always get the book on audio. And we picked a book one month that didn't have an audio. So her husband, this man, what a sweet, sweet man, read her it was like a 500-page historical romance novel. And then he came to the book group to discuss the book. He's like, I didn't like it, but I read
it. Because he read it too, right?
He read it too. And there's always a way, a way to access. And so you're getting, a new book. Historical romance is not my preferred genre. But I read it because I figured something new, right?
No, absolutely. Well, I think we need to cancel this term of this definition of retirement personally, like as it stands now, because the way that retirement exists in this country is, like you say, you work 30 years somewhere and then you're just done. It's like, I'm not working again. But maybe, yes, you can let go of that particular job, but that doesn't mean you're done, right? You can do something else. I was reading a story in a book about a woman who she was either 70 or 80. And at 70 or 80, she decided she wanted to study ancient Mesopotamia. So she took 10 years to study ancient Mesopotamia. And like I said, she was 70 or 80. So then by the time she was done, at 80 or 90, now she's an expert in ancient Mesopotamia. And then you have people coming to her. She's on, shows and in magazines and things like this, where it's kind of like the greatest thing that she has done in her life was learn about ancient Mesopotamia in like her 70s or 80s. And we don't think that when we become, that age, that we can have this kind of revival, right? Of our life, of our story, even of something new. But what you're saying is absolutely true. You can learn something at any age, especially if you are intentional and interested in it, right? And you don't know where that can take you. So maybe you did kind of suffer through some kind of job for 25 or 30 years that you're retired from, but now you can learn something that you were absolutely interested in before. And you just never know what might happen. But certainly don't just kind of give up, right? And say, oh, I'm done.
Well,
I'm
I
finished.
saw this. I started watching this show about 3 or 4 days ago, and it's with Chris Hemsworth. I think that's his name. He was and it's called Limitless.
Yes.
Thor? Chris Hemsworth?
Yes.
Thor?
Yes.
And it's called Limitless, and it is so good. And the first episode is freaking amazing because the first episode is this neuroscience person explaining your brain to
Yeah.
you
Mm.
and how your brain loses certain things, but your brain is created so smart that what it loses, it reconnects and re tracks it. And the
Yes.
way he explained it, or she explained it, was it's like driving down a highway for
Mm.
40 years and you're going the
Mm-hmm.
same way down
Mm-hmm.
this highway, and then one day that highway gets blocked off for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of you not being able to get to the result of what you need, you are the highway has now given you an alternate route.
Mm-hmm.
And he
Yep.
says, and she says, that is how our brain functions. As we get older, certain lights don't light up. But
Mm-hmm.
what the brain does is gives us an alternate route in the
Mm-hmm.
brain through stimulation that gets us to the same result, to the same
Yeah.
point. It was just an amazing, that first episode just, it sucked me in. I end up staying up late watching all the episodes. There's only 3 episodes out there, and I'm hoping that he'll do more, but
Yeah.
he is literally pushing his brain to the limit. And
There's actually a reason for that. So when he was prepping for that show,
mhm,
Mm.
he found that he has 2 copies of the gene that makes you more susceptible to Alzheimer's disease.
mhm, mhm,
So with 1 copy, we increase our risk from like 10 to 12% to 25%. And with
mhm,
2 copies, now we're at like a 75 or 80% chance of getting it.
mhm.
So he was determined
Wow.
to like build the muscle, build the brain
Yeah,
that would be most resistant to function loss. And so what
yeah,
you're describing is neuroplasticity. And
mhm,
that's where
mhm.
we can change the pathways in our brain by working them. And
Yeah,
that if we have an alternate route, if we have a detour, and something happens and that original route is damaged, maybe from Alzheimer's disease, we can reroute the signal to something else and
mhm,
still maintain that function. And
mhm.
so that's what he's doing is he's pushing his brain socially, emotionally, psychologically,
Yeah,
physically
yeah,
to be able to have the most resistance that if
Mm.
he is going to get Alzheimer's disease, which he's got a pretty likely chance, it's not 100%, but it's
mhm.
got a pretty likely chance that he will maintain his function as long as possible.
Yeah, it's amazing, Kamisha.
Mm-hmm.
And on the first episode, one of the things that the neuro doctor told him is that one of the things that opens up our brain is learning a musical instrument. And especially if you're not musically inclined. And you, yeah. And so you force yourself to learn this musical instrument, and a whole different segment of
Mm-hmm.
your brain lights up.
Yep.
It kicks off. And so he's not musically inclined, and he took up learning to play the drums. And then to make it even more robust, the singer that you love so much, Kamisha, Ed Sheeran,
Mm.
he challenged him that if you can learn this in 4 months, I will let you play a song on the stage in front of 70,000 people.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
Wow.
for 4 months, he had to learn this, and it was the most grueling thing he had ever done. Just to see him go through it, like at
Mm-hmm.
one point, he just wanted to give up.
Mm-hmm.
It was so grueling, but
Yeah.
he got there. He got there, but it took every single part of his body, physically,
Mm-hmm.
mentally, spiritually, and his
Mm-hmm.
mental capacity to
Yeah.
get to it. And it's an amazing show. It really is an amazing show of how we can build alternate routes in our brain.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
actually recently saw some research on, they did a brain scan comparing people who play different instruments.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
there is extra brain tissue
Mm-hmm.
in the areas that respond to or that they need for that particular instrument. So they were able to compare a pianist, someone who played piano,
Mm-hmm.
had that extra cortical tissue for in both hemispheres because they use both hands.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the people who are playing the violin do a lot of it with just one hand,
Yeah.
right? Like the strings.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were only showing that on one side as they were able to
Mm-hmm.
differentiate the brain of the musician. And so that's what he's doing. He's building brain tissue. He's
Yeah.
building the neurons for, in this case, drums, which takes a lot
Yeah.
of rhythm,
Yeah.
That's
pattern,
amazing. Mm.
and
Yeah.
motor skills, and if you're reading music, even you're learning another language.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
um
Mm-hmm.
so it's a lot to learn. So yeah, that's one thing that we can absolutely do, especially if we don't have a musical skill. But even if we do, what we find is that an older adult can learn something faster, and really this goes for any person. We can learn something faster if it's based in something that we already know. So
Yeah.
if you know English, right, it might be easier to learn German.
Mm-hmm.
You know
Mm-hmm.
Spanish, it might be easier to learn Italian, right, because it's kind of
Oh,
Mm.
wow.
similar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um and so he had such a hard time, and I would
Mm-hmm.
have a hard time
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know an instrument, right? I
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You
It was
you go ahead, Denise.
amazing. I was just gonna say it was an amazing show. Go ahead, Kamisha, with your question.
No, you mentioned Dr. Margolin, this term neuroplasticity,
Mm-hmm,
which it sounds like what I think Denise was explaining when she had
mm-hmm,
her example of the
yes.
car kind of
Mhm.
rolling into a wall, but not staying there, kind of turning around and going
Yep.
in the other direction.
Mm-hmm,
Can you talk a little bit more about neuroplasticity and
mm-hmm.
what like how does the brain, what is that like in the brain, this neuroplasticity, and like what are the benefits of neuroplasticity?
So when we learn something, our
Hmm.
brain physically changes, right? There's a
Yeah.
new connection between neurons, and
Mhm.
that is neuroplasticity. So we can gain those new connections, but we can also remove, or we call prune, ones that we don't need anymore.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so um, when we learn something new, we're creating a new pathway. And when we adjust a pathway, we're rerouting. So we're creating maybe a new highway. So neuroplasticity really is just the adjustment of our brain connections to match now what we need now. We
Mhm.
didn't need before, but now
Mhm.
we do. And we
Mhm.
can create that by exposing ourselves to new things and adjusting from there. So our experiences are going to change, physically change our brain.
Mhm. I love that. Do you think that technology affects the cognitive ability in our brain, like especially today's technology, like apps and online learning and all the modern technology? What challenge does or mental effect does it have on our brain health?
So I think the gut reaction probably for most people is that it's damaging.
Mhm.
Yes, that's what
Especially
most
now,
people would
and
say.
especially now with AI, which
Right.
you not even have to think about, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's the piece that maybe we need to be a little bit careful of, and that is like if we allow the computer to do it all,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? But if we're engaging with the computer, if we're using it as a tool, then we're
Hmm.
actually mentally stimulating. We're actually using that. And so, believe it or not, it actually can be very useful if we lean into technology in the right way.
Hmm.
There's some research that showed that when older adults were playing brain games
Hmm.
on the Nintendo Wii, they boosted executive function, processing speed, which we know actually does slow down in older age, but they were able to speed it back up a little bit. They boosted verbal fluency. And then even in people who were showing some cognitive decline, they gave them a game, like a video game that had like a weekly planning game. And they were able to now adjust their perspective memory, which is our ability to remember to do something later, like, oh, I gotta remember to pick up milk on the way home, like that kind of memory. And so we actually can use it as a tool if we're not afraid to do that. And because our world has become so technological, it actually is a good thing. During the pandemic, older adults were figuring out and learning how to use FaceTime and Zoom on their own because they couldn't call their grandkids and have them come over and show them what
for that part right here where they do this.
Right, we're doing it right now. But they were able to figure it out and learn it because it was something that was valuable to them, and it created a connection to their grandkids, to their friends, to their family, and then they could use that as a tool. When we rely on it and let it do something for us, that's when we stop using it and we get back into this use it or lose it situation where now we're going to maybe lose that skill. I find this even in myself. I used to be so good at mental math that I could walk through a store when I was a kid and like tally up what we were buying and calculate my total, my mom's total, with tax in my head. But the more I used the calculator, the less I did that
less
work.
you used your
Now it's so hard. I could probably do it. The strain that you feel trying to do it, right? So by allowing to like externally offload that work to something else, now we're not using it anymore. So it really is this sort of use it or lose it. It's a great tool. Technology is a great tool, but when it does it for us.
I love that. I love that.
What I'm hearing is that as we age, we have to be really intentional, right? About making sure we are staying on top of our brain health. And that does not include really kind of doing nothing with our brain, right? It means that we still have to stay active, keep our brain active, keep learning new things, keep challenging ourselves, keep challenging our brain. And to me, it's exciting, actually. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it's not something that should be looked at as, oh my God, this is a terrible thing. It's like, wow, what can my brain do? Which goes back to, what Denise was talking about with the show that she's watching, where he's challenging himself. If you actually change your perspective a little bit on aging, right? Change how you're looking at it. And instead of saying, look at all these things that I'm losing, and say, now look at all these things I can gain. Look at all these things I can learn now that I have more time, right? And now that there's more tools and technology to support that, like how can I challenge myself? Those are I think not just methods, but also attitudes, right? Like emotionally and mentally that can support you as you age as well. To age, much better, like by using your brain, working with your brain and keeping it going.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of a shift in perspective that needs to happen. Because if we lean into the assumption that like once we're retired, it's all downhill, we don't have to do anything, then we don't. And we can also see that as, further negative of like, I have to find something to do with my brain. But we get to do something. We get to figure out what is interesting for us. So this is the positive. We get to be excited about something new that we haven't been doing for the last 40 years of our lives. We get to figure out something that's fun. We get to, figure out how to grow strawberries in our garden. We get to figure out how to tap dance. We get to figure out how to, whatever thing we want to learn. We get to figure out if we like historical romance novels. Maybe we like them, maybe we don't. We don't know until we try.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely right. Go ahead, Denise.
I was going to say, what about exercise? That was another thing that they talked about on the show, is how being active, exercising can help also build the cognitive health of your brain.
Yeah. So when I think about cognitive aging, I like to think about it in like a biopsychosocial approach. So we talked a lot about the psycho portion of that, like exercising your brain, having a good perspective, looking at opportunities, but there's also a biological piece and a social piece. So the biological piece is partially exercise.
Yeah.
And this doesn't mean we have to run marathons and we have to lift weights, and become a bodybuilder. But what we do have to do is move. When we move our bodies in a joyful way, we're exercising our cardiovascular system, which is going to send blood to our brain, going to send nutrients to our brain. And our brain is going to get what it needs to do the psycho stuff, the psychological stuff that we've been talking about this whole time. So we need to do that. We also need to provide our body with the nutrients that it needs. And most of the research shows that a Mediterranean style diet is key. So we need to have some of the plant forward, whole grains, beans, vegetables, fruits, omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin B12. Those are really important. So when we add that to gentle exercise, like going for a walk, gardening, we don't need to be pounding our joints into the ground. And we know that arthritis is fairly common in older adulthood because we've been living for 70 years upright and walking around, and depending on what job we've had, maybe we were in construction, maybe we were a teacher and on our feet all day. Our body is used, right? We don't want to continue to be harsh with it. But working and with our limitations, maybe we go for a swim. Maybe we dance around in the living room. Maybe we run around with our grandkids. Maybe we go for a walk in the morning. Those are all really valuable exercise. So yeah, definitely.
So then tell us about the third piece to that. You said, I think social.
Yeah.
So I think one of the assumptions that when we get older is that we will be lonely, right? We're going to be dumped off in a nursing home.
I don't think that's an assumption. I think that's what me and you, we talked about this before. That is actually happening with a lot.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's not happening as widely as we think. Again, like dementia, it's not happening as widely as we think. We are not all going to end up alone in a nursing home. What we do see is a shrinking of our social circle naturally because of this prioritization of quality over quantity. We'd much rather have one or two very close friends than 17 kind of I know them. But the engagement that we have in a social world is important. So when we're engaging with our friends socially, that can boost our cognition. We see brain activity sync with our grandchildren when we're living in like a communal home. So not, living separately. And we don't see this a lot in the United States, but we do see it where we have like multiple generations in the home. But when we see that, we see the brain activity between grandchild and grandparent. So there's definitely a connection. And when we engage in activities with friends, we're getting social support. We're getting a way to cope with stress. And we know that stress can accelerate the aging process all the way down to like our DNA. We're potentially learning something new with a friend. Maybe you say, hey, Denise, you say, hey, Kamisha, let's go learn to play pickleball or something. And, both of you go. And
you really should go do that, though.
No, I'm not doing it. Not interested.
Or let's go take a tap dancing class, or like you do, you're doing something together, right? And there's also research, and this is sort of social, but it's also sort of like stress relieving, that religion, any
Mhm.
religion, doesn't matter what it is, can be helpful in reducing that stress and reducing that potential for accelerating in the aging process.
You know,
Um,
I read or seen a documentary, I can't, it was years ago, about people who pray
mhm,
versus people who don't, you know,
mhm,
religious people or whatever who pray, how their stress level and anxiety
mhm,
is so much lower than
mhm,
people who do not pray or, you know, have that
mhm,
religious or
mhm,
you know, deity connection that
mhm,
they're praying to for whomever they're praying. But I either an article or a documentary that because they were saying that it's not so much of the prayer, but it's more of you are allowing your body to relax and meditate so you
mhm.
have this connection,
Yep.
you know.
Mhm.
Yep.
So
And
yeah.
I think the most obvious way that we can see this happens like at the end of life when we think about death, right? Every
Hmm.
religion has like a belief of what happens after,
Hmm.
and they have like rituals or protocols of things that happen when someone dies. And so rather than being fearful of the unknown, we know exactly what's going to happen because our religion, whatever it is, told us that. And
Hmm.
that is a huge reliever of stress to like
Hmm.
know what's going to happen and have the faith in that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I can see that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, this is a great conversation. I feel like now as we wind down, Dr.
Mhm.
Margolin, what are some tips that you can give to viewers today to figure out, what can they do today to kind of protect their brain health? What can
Yeah.
they do to use it versus, losing it, as you
Mm-hmm.
say, today?
Yeah.
So I think there's no one like quick fix, right? There's no
Hmm.
one thing that's going to get you to live forever, never get dementia, never have a problem. Like that's not realistic.
Right.
But we can make small shifts in bio, psycho, and social. So we
Mm.
can shift a little bit in our daily activity, maybe add in a walk after dinner,
Mm.
shift a little bit in eating a few more vegetables, in our diet.
Yeah.
We can think about the psycho piece of that, and we can change our perspective on aging as, going from being something to fear and something that's negative to being something that's amazing. Yes, it's different and change, but it's growth, right?
Right. Right.
Um, and think about what kinds of activities do I like, do I want to do? Is there something that I want to learn, something new that I could try?
Yeah.
And we don't have to be good at it. We can just try it, right? When I was in grad school, I joined a bowling league.
I used to be in a bowling league. It was
Oh, it was not pretty. My bowling average was
yeah, me too. Me too. Me too. I was horrible.
68. But I did it anyway because it was something new and it was something fun, right? I could go and do. You don't have to be good at it, right? But I think
Mhm.
that's a barrier sometimes. And then social. Don't isolate. We can make new friends. We can try something new in a group. Take an exercise class.
Mhm.
Um, we can spend more time with our grandchildren. We can join a club. We can go to church services, or maybe we already go to services, but we join a small group in a Bible study group or something. We can pick, I would say, pick one thing in each of those areas,
Mhm.
and then we'll be coming at it in lots of different ways. Because, like I said, one thing is not going to be the quick fix for
Yeah.
it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this. Love this. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
You
Margot.
are
And this
very
has
welcome.
been great. This has been a lot of great information, some that we kind of already knew, and some that's like been aha moments for us, and some that's just been a nudge, like you know what you're supposed to be doing. You need to just get up and just get it done, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I've been
Yeah.
thinking about this book club for a while, and just listening to this just confirms that I really need to jump in there and just find a book club
Mm-hmm.
that I can just get into. So, but I got to be specific about the books because I don't want to read no historical romances at all. So
You don't have
that's not
to.
my
That's the
thing.
beauty of it. You can go, you can just say, you know what, this month's book is not for me.
Yeah,
Right, right. I'm not reading
mhm,
that book. Pick
absolutely.
your own.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. We truly appreciate you. And, we reserve the right to call you back again
Yes,
as we
absolutely.
get into this some more, because I feel like we just scratched the surface and that
Yes.
there's so much more that we can dig into for this.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Kamisha?
No, I agree. I mean, learning about our brains is just
Mhm,
has been fascinating to me.
mhm.
Learning about the different, ways that our
Yeah,
brain works with us, right? Not like against
not
us.
against us.
Yes,
Exactly.
not against us, and how we can push our brains, to do more for us as we age, not
Mhm,
less for us. So
mhm.
I think this is an amazing conversation. I think our viewers can get a lot out of it. And
Yes.
even just personally, I'm sitting here thinking, what new thing can I learn? What new thing can I
Yes.
teach myself here in the next
Exactly.
year,
Hmm.
to get my
Exactly.
brain, yeah, to keep my brain moving in the right direction as I get older. So
Mhm.
no, I think this has been amazing and very powerful. So
Yeah.
I hope everyone has been able to get at least one thing that they can, move forward and do. Like you said, just something small. You don't have
Yeah.
to go out and, change everything that you do completely, but
Yeah.
just
All
one
at
step.
once, all the
Yeah, one
things.
little thing in the right direction and one of
Mm-hmm.
those buckets, right? The
Yeah.
social or the
Mhm.
bio or the psycho,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
there's something that we can all be doing. So, no, it's great.
Absolutely. Just that aging is a wonderful experience, and we are all lucky to be able to get just one day older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
I love
Mm-hmm.
that. I love that.
I do love
Wonderful.
it. One
Wonderful.
day older. Close us out, Kanisha.
Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining us on another episode of the Wisdom and Bloom podcast. Please remember to like this episode, to comment, and to share with a friend who you think can benefit from a lot of the information or just
Yeah.
little bit of the information, that we have shared today. And ladies, keep blooming.
Blooming ladies. Bye, y'all.
Bye.